See what adding just a little bit of a tangible threat adds to the flavor of your show. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Sixth episode of Mayfair Witches called Transference is here. Look, this show has been sort of a chore to watch the last couple of weeks. Not much has happened. It's been a lot of standing still. I've also heard from some of the book readers who read the book that this doesn't, the people who made this series have chosen what they wanted to do and kind of threw away the rest and kind of come up with this hodgepodge that neither book readers nor people who are actually just watching the show truthfully enjoy. And so I've had a bit of an issue with where I stand with this show. And then this episode occurs, which kind of lays out why that issue stuck out so much for me. Up until this point, up until this episode, our only real antagonist was Lasher, who was this guy who, for better or worse, maybe it's because of the way he's portrayed, feels like he's just doing parlor tricks. We had not had a true villain or true antagonist in this series, and now we got one in episode 6. It was a little late. So, again, back with the flashbacks, we get a quick shot of Suzanne getting pulled out of her home by some of the folks that she's helped in this town, but by the men of that town who believe that she's a witch. And they essentially say that, hey, you're going to be judged before God. And then we flash forward to a scene of our morgue, who was a little too eager to watch Cyprian do what he did and invite him to this She-Man witch hater cult. But he is watching Arlo, who's sort of the spokesperson of this cult, on TV, kind of give this speech, this declaration, if you will. Some of the mouth breathers that you have of the world won't go too much further into that, but you know the type of people who this sort of is paralleling. But he's sitting at home alone, eating a sandwich, has a fridge. He doesn't have much of a life for himself outside of this, but he has Deirdre's heart. He's taking it from the morgue and he's posting about it and kind of waving the flag and saying, hey, yo, I want to be a part of this cult, and I have something that would be beneficial to you. Rowan wakes up laying next to Cyprian, which we still have not gotten a clear read on what their relationship is or is not. It seems like they're okay with sleeping in the same bed together in the real world, so there is something that has occurred there. But we have never really seen scenes that have actually made that call other than they wake up together and they go to sleep together in the same bed. Some of that could just be, do they love each other? Like, none of that has been clear. And it doesn't seem like it matters because we don't really care about that story too much. But Rowan wakes up and sees and hears Lasher. And this is where we get to a lot of those sort of parlor tricks that Lasher does. He shows up and then he's not there. And then he has her playing with candles and showing up in the window while she's drinking coffee, pretending to be her. I think in better hands and a better actor, that also could sort of come together and make this work. But right now it just feels cheap and kind of hokey, which is why I never really felt that there was a threat in this, so far in this series. But she wakes up from the bed, asks him if he's there, and then they kind of just have a combo in the living room, and he has her playing with fire. Cyprian wakes up and says, hey, is he here? And because we were all of the belief that he could not make it into that house because they had a certain amount of spells and protections on the house, and that's what he felt. And she's like, I don't see him. She's lying to him, like, I don't see him. He's not here. And she's like, he's here. He's here. And at that point, Cyprian sort of puts it together that the locket that she has around her neck is sort of acting as a conduit or a beacon to him. It's like you already had a connection to him, but this is sort of allows it to be stronger and amplified, so it allows him to get through the spells. So he's like, we need to take that off, and I'm going to take it to the Talamasca. So he takes it off of her, and she starts spazzing out. She is freaking out like nobody's business. She's like, I need him, I want him, I love him. I like basically all of those things, to the point where she finally does calm down and realize that she's gone a bit of insane, and that the best thing would be for Cyprian to take this away from her because she's no longer in control, and he does have her. Posting about Deirdre's heart is sort of out there, and Tessa, who's probably the only person who would actually be aware of it. All the other witches here are a little too old to be on social media. Um, Tessa makes Rowan aware of it and says, "Hey, they got her heart. What are we going to do about it?" And Rowan's like, "It's an organ. It's not a like they have a human person. We don't need to sort of worry about this." The bit of foreshadowing. It's kind of lazy writing because as we go along, we're going to get a point where you're like, "Oh yeah, it's obviously Tessa who we're talking about," but because we don't have a conversation with any other witches, it's only Tessa that we really have gotten a chance to know, and that's really only in a brief moment at the funeral and now. So Tessa's pretty much our only way in. But Rowan wants no parts of it. Rowan's like, no, we don't need to fight for this. It's just an organ. They don't have anybody actually, not actually burning anybody or actually have anybody, so there's no reason to go after them. Rowan goes to her uncle and says, hey, she wants Ada Lasher. Like, I don't want to be a part of this business. I don't want him here. I don't want any parts of him. She's like, I'll give you the house for $1. Like, I don't want this. And he's like, well, it's not going to be that easy. Like, you can't just do that. And in a bit of a touching point transference through the cup of tea, she sees that her uncle has ALS. So she gets into her doctor mode a bit and says, hey, if you could remove that disease from your entire body, wouldn't you want to? And he's like, yeah, of course. He's like, well, why wouldn't that be the same for me as Lasher? So she tries to parallel and compare that to what she's going through. And he sort of falls for it for a bit. And he's like, well, look, there was this one time Mayfair did do a transference. You're going to have to give us some stuff. It's going to be a lot. But I think it's a route that we can kind of look at for you. So he calls on a favor to one of the other Mayfairs, and she shows up. I'm like, why are you giving her this option? Like, what are you doing? And he basically says you can't expect a designee that is raised out of the nest to sort of operate in the same manner. Maybe this is what's best for her. Maybe this is what she needs. And at that point, she says that for this to work, they need something from Deidre because Deidre has to give her blessing to allow this transference to occur. And that Rowan will be in a ton of danger when this all takes place. So then we have to do a parallel because Cyprian is at the Talamasca with the woman who saved his life, taking the knife out, doing all that stuff. He's going to use the necklace that Rowan had around her neck to sort of act as a throughway to get to see some memories and see where Lasher sort of starts from and originates from. And so we go back to the flashback of Suzanne after she's been taken from the home. And we see sort of how that plays out. And basically, they're doing a trial in front of everybody to account for her misgivings. And Suzanne's pleading her case. She's like, yo, I fixed your leg. I helped your wife. Like, I don't understand why you guys are being so adversarial towards me. But you have the seed of this mob mentality that grows. That's like, hey, you use witchcraft to do this. You aren't of this world. You aren't of this. That starts to grow. And that gets parallel as this episode goes with the group that Arlo is running in present day. They're basically one and the same, just a heightened version of it. Rowan is warned that if she transfers Lasher away from her, there's a chance she may lose her medical abilities and her medical prowess. To which Rowan kind of scoffs at, like, look, so you tell me that if I get rid of this, I'm going to lose the years and years of medical license and medical studies that I've done. I'm going to take my chances. I don't think that's going to be the case. And so that's interesting because we have seen that a lot of sometimes what she does when she takes people out is that she is going in and kind of doing that magic stuff and kind of seeing stuff. We don't know because we've never been in a situation where she has not had it. We don't know if that is a little bit of why her surgical prowess is as strong as it is, because it's always been dormant but present. But they say that once we transfer this out of you, it's going to transfer to someone else. We're going to have all the witches here and it's going to transfer to somebody else. Clearly, that someone else is going to be Tessa. There's no one else. And so that's why I think it's a bit of a lazy writing now. I don't know if they're necessarily trying to hide it. I don't know if that happens in the book, but it was clearly from the moment that Tessa showed up in that opening piece of this episode, that's who that was going to go to. And so Could have probably done that a little bit better to hide who that was going to be. But apparently that doesn't matter. So then we have two parallel scenes happening kind of at the same time. We have Cyprian in the past looking at the Suzanne stuff while she is getting put into a cage and basically going to be buried alive, well, drowned alive. They are planning, it's like, hey, you're a witch. You get out of this, and we'll see that you're a witch, and nothing. We're all going to be punished for it. And if you're not, well, you're going to die, and you're going to go with God. Either way, for them, it's a win-win. Some wild stakes there, but that is how they're playing that for her. Present day, Rowan is circled around the rest of the Mayfair women, including Tessa, obviously, and they are doing a seance to transfer Lasher out of Rowan. While this is happening, we then do see Arlo being greeted at a rally by our morgue gentleman who brings the heart to him and says, hey, you know the Mayfair Witches? I know where they at. We got some business to handle. And so he kind of galvanizes that group again and becomes a part of that. Suzanne then sees her little sister coming to kind of be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, get out of there. And she's like, no, don't show that you're a part of me or show you're attached to me. They're one of the people that are with this whole mob, sees her and sees how much they have a connection. It's like, all right, I'm going to take her too, just to kind of rile her up more. And at that point, her sister says, hey, start using the wicked word. And Suzanne starts spitting them out. Like, all right, well, I don't have a choice. I don't care if you hurt me, but don't hurt my sister. She starts spitting out those wicked words. Meanwhile, Rowan is saying those same words back at the seance. So we get a parallel of those words being used on and on. And what we learn is that those wicked words are what bring Lasher about for the very first time. Lasher starts causing chaos in Suzanne in that world, and just all hell breaks loose. And then Rowan gets to see Lasher in present day, and they have a combo. And Lasher just questions, like, are you sure you want to give this up? Like, you're finally you're starting to show your true self. Why do you want to lose this? And she's like, I don't want any parts of this. And so then he disappears, and we see a scene of her coughing up the locket that Cyprian took from her earlier. She coughs it up and gives it to her aunt. And her aunt starts sort of parading it around and trying to see who it is calling to. It's Tessa. It winds up being Tessa, and that's who the locket goes around. Rowan's a little dismayed, like, no, not Tessa, because of all the ones that she doesn't want that to be a part of, she sort of has an affinity towards her. Meanwhile, we get a little bit more as to Lasher coming out of the fire that was forged for him, and he kills the one guard that remains for Suzanne. He throws Cyprian off. Like, he somehow can touch and see Cyprian in his dream state there, and he throws him off, and thus has sort of trapped Cyprian there. Because in the day with him in the interrogation room in this dream, his eyes are white glazed over and he's stuck. And they also no longer have the pendant because it's now around Tessa. Like, that's what Rowan coughed up. So now he's sort of stuck there, and his the person with him at the Telemaska is like, hey, you're on your own now. You have to find a way out of this dream sequence on your own. That locket that is sort of created, that has become this beacon or this totem for the bond between the Mayfairs and Lasher, starts there because he chokes the guard with the keys, and then he gives that to Suzanne to sort of unlock herself out of this cage that she's in, and thus creating that bond that they've sort of had this entire time. So that sort of creates the story of how Suzanne first called for Lasher, and this all kind of came to be. I don't really mind that story. I wish, and I think the audiences are smart enough and well enough to do so, that you have just taken an episode, maybe not the first episode or second episode because you're building up who Rowan is, but use that third episode to just tell that story as one entire piece. It would have felt better than these herky-jerky stop and start moments that kind of happened throughout the season. Suzanne asked Lasher, am I a witch? And he's like, you are, and you're my witch, and you're bound to me. They kind of just look at the fire and chaos they created, and thus the start of the Mayfair legacy. Present day, Tessa, being the silly young girl that she is, and mentioning that she had already wanted to sort of cause vengeance now that she feels she has Lasher on her side. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go strike some vengeance out here. And so she responds to the post that is online about having Beatrice heart, and basically is setting up to go and attack these people. It's going to be a trap, clearly. Uh, um, but she goes there and meets the gentleman with the morgue, and they're having a combo. And her witch spell is the glamour, so she can kind of get people to do whatever she wants. And she starts going into glamour mode with this gentleman before Arlo and his crew show up. And as I said, it's a trap. They take her and capture her, and that is the episode. A lot of the things that happen in this episode, I wish occurred much sooner. Episode 3. We spent about 3 episodes kind of spinning our wheels instead of stuck in the same world. I like the entire explanation of Suzanne and Lasher and the first calling of him. Could have gotten that earlier. And I feel like if you're going to bring Tessa up and make her this sort of sacrificial lamb that we kind of end up, Rowan has to get her powers back to go save Tessa, because I feel like that's where we're going to go. We needed to have a little bit more connection between Tessa and Rowan, or the audience needs to have a little bit more time with just Tessa, because it doesn't, I don't care that she was taken. I know so little of her that I don't care. Now, I'm more concerned about Cyprian being stuck in whatever world he's in, because we've spent time with that character. But Tessa, if you're expecting me as an audience member to give a damn about her being captured, I need to spend more time there. Instead, what you do is make her a MacGuffin, which is, I guess, the point, but it's just a charge point to get Rowan to go get her powers back and come after Tessa and basically accept Lasher. A lot of the problems I still have with this episode, even though I think there are some good things story beat wise, I still think Lasher is a weak piece. Maybe portrayal, maybe the way that it's just garnered here in this episode or the series, but I am more akin to having the Arlo and his witch hating crew as the antagonist than I am at anything that Lasher does. And I know Lasher sort of acts as the villain, but is also the sort of the beacon of help and hope for these witches so that they don't get attacked by people like Arlo. But there needs to be some type of more than just seeming like a guy who's just standing around aloof doing goofy things, as opposed to some of the more tangible real life things that Arlo and his team are doing. I mean, they've done more to harm these Mayfair witches in just this episode and the preview for the next episode than I think we've seen happen from Lasher in the entire series. Again, I'm now a completist. I've made it too far to stop watching these and talking about them, so I'm going to continue on. It is still not the show that I look forward to out of all the shows that I'm reviewing, the shows that are coming. It's not the show that I look forward to talking about the most, but there's enough on the bone, and I typically like shows like this that I'm sticking with it, because I think we're getting to a point where I'm starting to care about a couple more things than I did in the previous 5 episodes combined. What did you guys think about this episode of Mayfair Witches called Transference? Go to leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.